And welcome everyone to another episode of Beyond the Forecast. I am Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens, and today we continue our Fire Weather Awareness Week, if you will. There's a lot of things tied to this when it comes to everything that is wildfires, fire danger, dry conditions, and we're just kind of jamming it all together in 1 week for you. But today, what we're going to do is we are going to talk to Meteorologist John Gross. He's going to let us know of wildfire safety and what you need to know about that in case wildfire does approach your neck of the woods. Then we also take you into a fun experiment as we are going to talk to you about flame jumping with a candle. Very cool to see. So we break that down, show you in slow-mo, and show you why this happens. A little fun and a little bit of science there for you. Then at the end of the show, we have a very fun announcement to inform you about from this past weekend, but also one last peek at last week's podcast with myself and meteorologist Haley Fischetti about severe weather. So we will have that all coming up today for you in the show. But here in the first part, we always like to give you some fun facts, whether it's a little bit of this day in weather and history or trivia, and also viewer photo of the day. And first up, we're going to be talking about this day in weather history. Now, back in April 8th of 1926, lightning set fire to an oil depot near San Luis Obispo, California, and causing the oil to boil over and engulf 900 acres. Now, many tornado vortices were developed from the intense heat of the fire. So all that heat rising started to develop some tornado vortices. And one of the tornadoes traveled 1,000 yards, picked up a house, and carried it 150 feet, and killing its 2 occupants. Wow. So that is just how dangerous lightning can be for you. This happened again on April 8th of 1926. Pretty wild there. Now, trivia. Yesterday, we asked you, what is the center of a hurricane called? Yeah, it's the eye. In fact, when I was recording this prior to, I actually said, what is the eye of a hurricane called? I was like, I can't use that. I screwed it up. But yeah, it's called the eye. That is the center of the hurricane because low pressure, when you have that setting up, there's always a center. And where the center of that storm is, the eye, it's calm, it's sunny, it's bright. Everything around it is where you find the storm activity. Today, we're asking you, which year was the most active hurricane season on record? Is it A, 2016, B, 2020, C, 2019, or D, 2005? And to give you a little bit of a hint, there was 30 named hurricanes that year. Pretty wild. So hit the QR code, weigh in, give your answer, and it'll show us where everybody lies, but we'll have the answer for you tomorrow. So if you know it, get in there. Now, viewer photo of the day. Pretty cool, awesome photo here. This is brought to you by Great Rooms. Today's photo was sent in from T. Vito Vitrano. It says it's a puppy on a dock, just sitting there watching, waiting, but it's entitled Patiently Waiting Spring. Oh yeah, I mean, aren't we all? I mean, today there was snow flying outside when I woke up. So T, thank you so much for sending this amazing photo in. I cannot wait to be on the dock like that pups and just sitting there enjoying a lake and some warmer weather. So thank you again, T, for sending that in, and thank you Great Rooms for sponsoring viewer photo of the day. All right, diving into the show, we are going to send it over to meteorologist John Gross, and he is going to give us wildfire safety tips and everything we need to know about wildfire and how to stay safe if it is encroaching on our neck of the woods. We'll have that coming up right after the break.
Hey there everybody, Meteorologist John Gross, and today we are going to be talking about wildfires and the ingredients that you do need for a wildfire not only to start, but we'll also talk about weather conditions that can unfortunately help wildfires spread and become very, very dangerous. So let's go ahead and go over a few things that you do need for a wildfire to initiate, and one of the main things that you do need is that spark. Now, you can talk about a lightning strike, you can talk about a campfire or a bonfire, you can even talk about sparks coming off of power tools, a hot car on dry vegetation, but you need that spark to initiate the fire itself, and once you have that, if you have a source of fuel, otherwise known as dry vegetation, maybe trees, things of that nature, and you combine that with, well, any oxygen that we have, and we know we have that here on planet Earth, that's how you can really start to get these wildfires, unfortunately, spreading very, very quickly. So main causes for a wildfire, again, we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but it can be a natural cause where you can talk about lightning, where you can have what's called a dry thunderstorm, pretty much meaning you have a thunderstorm that produces lightning, but not any rainfall. And that actually can help to cause a wildfire to start. Or we can talk about things like a campfire or a bonfire. If things are very, very dry, those unfortunately can get out of control very, very quickly if the conditions are right. Heat from the sun, that can make things very dry, otherwise known as a drought, and just the severity of that drought. When you're talking about a lot of dry vegetation, that can be a fuel source for fires. Also just human error. You can talk about just things that we as humans do sometimes that may or may not be intentional, but that also can be the cause of how a wildfire does start. Now, factors for how they continue to grow. So now we have that spark. What are some of the main things we talk about? And this is where the weather perspective does come into play a little bit more. You could be talking about overgrown forests. What we mean by that is the trees themselves, they might not just be, well, very much alive. The trees themselves could be dying, at least the timber or whatever it might be. That wood could be very, very dry, and that can just be a very good fuel source for a wildfire to continue to grow. You can also talk about any dry vegetation from that tree that could fall, maybe pine needles, just sticks on the forest floor. That could also be a source for wildfire growth. You're also talking about drought, like we did mention. If you have not seen a lot of rainfall and the ground is very, very dry, that can also be a source for wildfire growth. Extreme heat, when you're talking about heat waves. Usually when you're talking about a heat wave, that's temperatures very, very hot for at least a few days. Usually you're not talking about a lot of rainfall, so still very, very dry conditions. And the wind. If you're talking about those very hot embers and it's very, very windy, that can help to just spread a wildfire very, very quickly, depending exactly on where you're located, whether that be in an area that has a lot of trees, or even sometimes we've seen wildfires growing, unfortunately, in urban locations. So that can be something, again, that can spread wildfires very, very quickly. Now, things you can do to prevent wildfires from not only starting, but even spreading, making sure if you're ever having a bonfire or a campfire, you're never leaving it unattended. Also checking in with burn bans and just seeing how the fire danger looks for a specific area. Probably not going to be the best idea to have that bonfire or campfire. Watching grilling as well. That can also be a fuel source, or at least a heat source. If the vegetation under the grill is very, very hot, that could also be the start of a wildfire, so watching for that. Again, burn bans and those warnings, red flag warnings, they're in play for a reason when you're talking about very, very dry conditions, so adhering to those. If you do happen to be a smoker and you are discarding of cigarettes, maybe that's something that you're just not actively thinking about. That also could be the spark for a wildfire. When you're talking about vegetation, keeping vehicles off of that dry vegetation, the heat from a vehicle itself, that also can be the spark for a wildfire to start. Avoiding power tools that cause sparks literally could be the spark to start a wildfire. And then again, obeying any orders from potentially the DNR. Again, those are in play for a reason, because wildfires, if that spark is initiated, it can spread very, very quickly. Let's go ahead and talk about the winds a little bit more. Now, certain parts of the country can be susceptible to wildfires spreading a little bit quicker than others. And one thing that we do focus on, especially here into California, is what we do call the Santa Ana winds. Now, this can happen over any mountain range that you do see, but areas into California, near Los Angeles, time and time again, we've talked about how strong the Santa Ana winds can be. And if you have that wind flow coming over the mountain range, and then that air, as it sinks to the surface, it begins to warm. You couple that with a very dry landmass. Now, sometimes you're talking about the wet season here into California, but you can also talk about very dry conditions as well. So when you couple those two with those gusty winds, that can be a recipe for fire danger, and then again, fire growth. That can be very, very explosive. And unfortunately, we did see very, very destructive wildfires just to the north of Los Angeles, areas near Pasadena. If you do remember that, it was a very, very destructive wildfire that destroyed thousands of homes and really uprooted many people's lives. So this is what we're talking about when you have that chance, not only for wildfires to spark, but again, they can spread very, very easily. So talking a little bit more about those Santa Ana winds, as those winds are coming over the peak of the mountain. Now remember, temperatures as you're going up in heights within the atmosphere itself, they are cooler, but the downslope effect of those winds eventually going to areas like we did see near Pasadena, California, when you're coupling that with those warmer temperatures, very, very dry conditions, low humidity values, and those gusty winds, that can be a recipe for fires to not only develop, but spread very, very quickly. So making sure you do know the signs and things that you can just do to prevent wildfires from spreading can be very, very important. I'm Meteorologist John Gross reporting for Beyond the Forecast.
Thanks, John. Now, coming up next, I take you into the kitchen to do another fun experiment that has to do with candles and jumping flames. We'll have the reasons why they are jumping right after the break. And welcome back, everyone, to Beyond the Forecast. I'm Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens, and today we are going to show you a really cool thing with 2 candles and a flame. And really, you're only going to need the flame for 1 candle. But we've been talking about fire danger and things surrounding fire weather and fire danger throughout the week. Today, we're going to show you nothing that has anything to do with fire danger or fire weather, but something really interesting where you have 1 candle, and just a normal candle, birthday candle. But if you were to blow this out on the like on a cake, you blow it out. You take away the oxygen from the candle and you distinguish the flame. But if there's a candle right next to it, the flame will actually jump from this candle and reignite this candle, while both then remained lit. So if you've ever been at a birthday with a cake that someone might have a lot of candles, I don't know, like me, if you have 39 of them on there, you might notice that it's tough to blow them all out and some might reignite, but you might not see exactly what happens. And that's what we're going to show you today. We're going to show you flame jumping from this candle to this candle and reigniting. It's pretty cool. And it almost looks like a magic trick, but there's science behind why this is happening. So what you're going to need is 2 candles, and put 1 candle somewhere that it will remain upright. I don't have a cake, but I have some bread here, and just have it like that. And then when you're ready, light that candle, blow it out, and you'll see that, yeah, you extinguish the flame. You take away the oxygen, you take away its way of burning. But if you blow that out and this candle is close enough, you'll see a flame jump to it. So we're going to show you that today. And before we get started, because this is dealing with flames and candles, kids, make sure you have parental guidance while doing this. Don't need anybody starting a fire and getting in trouble, so make sure that parents are involved with this one, okay? So let's get started, shall we? All right, so there's our candle. Now, you can tell, yeah, it's just burning there, burning away, getting down to wick, but when we blow on it, you take away the oxygen, and you take away its means of burning. But if you were to get a flame close enough to that, it would reignite very quickly. So let's show you that. Let's get our flame back on with this candle. And then we're going to light this other candle as well. So we have 2 flames, like that. So now, when we blow this candle out, and hold this candle near it, you'll see a flame jump. So if you go like this, do you see it jump? You see it? So the reason this is happening is because of the vapors. So what's allowing this to burn, yes, you are extinguishing the flame. But when you extinguish the flame, the vapors, the smoke from that flame and what was burning can still catch fire. So you're hitting those vapors and the flame is jumping to that and going to the thing that will burn. So yeah, there you go. It's a pretty cool little experiment. So what's happening is when you blow out the candle, you can see the smoke. So that smoke has vapors in it, and that has particles of what was helping it burn on the candle. So when you get a flame close enough to that smoke, it grabs the vapors, igniting it, working its way back down to the actual fuel itself or the source, which will help the flame burn. And that is the jumping flame trick. It's not magic, it's just science. So there you go. A little fun trick that you can do. Now remember, if you want to do it, make sure your parents are involved. You don't want to create any issues or start a fire. Fire is very dangerous. So if you can do a trick like this to show how dangerous fire can be, this one's better to do than, say, an extinguisher in much bigger area and flammable things. So there you go. The jumping flame candle trick. Try it out. I'm Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens for Beyond the Forecast. We'll be right back with more great science and weather. Coming up next on Beyond the Forecast, we take you into a special event that happened this weekend and tell you about an award we won. But we'll also dive one last time into the podcast with me and Haley about severe weather, as we have a new one that was filmed today. We'll have that right after the break. And welcome back, everyone, to Beyond the Forecast. Now, this past weekend, I was in Detroit doing a few things, but there is one special thing that we were down there for. The Michigan Association of Broadcasters Broadcasting Excellence Awards, so the MAB-BEAs. We were down there because we were a finalist for Weathercast of the Year. And I was there to accept the award, as it was for my weathercast of severe weather. And we were on all social platforms, including our weather app and also on TV, breaking severe weather from last year on August 24th. That was pretty much the entire lower peninsula. A line of storms came through and had a lot of wind, and a lot of damage came from those storms, a lot of power outages as well. But we, the team, were here in the studio making sure we were live on the platforms, answering all the questions on platforms, but also on our app at live, making sure everybody could take in that information and important facts of what was moving through. And I was there to accept the award, and yes, it has my name on it, but I see this as an award for the entire department here at 9 and 10, because without them, a lot of that wouldn't be possible. Yes, I might have set it up so we could do those things, but with their help, we were able to break that to a lot of people across northern Michigan. So with that all being said, congratulations to my team on what we've achieved here over the last several months, because what that award really means to me from the Michigan Association of Broadcasters is they see what we're doing, and it's very important. And the fact that we can be live breaking severe weather to you on TV, on our social platforms, on our weather app, all at the same time, keeping everyone informed if you're not close to a TV, is amazing. So congratulations to the team for that. Now, getting back to our podcast, meteorologist Haley Fischetti and I do a weekly podcast, usually centered around the topic of the week. And this week, obviously, we're talking about fire weather. And we had that this morning, and we'll show you that later this week. And you can also listen to it anywhere you get your podcast or watch it on YouTube or Facebook. Now, we're going to jump in one last time from the severe weather podcast that we had last week. And one little segment here before we jump into this week's new podcast tomorrow. Check it out. Tornado more powerful now was before? No, not necessarily. We are seeing more extremes. I would say we're seeing more of them.
I would say more of an increase of tornadoes, so it makes it sound like they're more powerful than they were before. But no, they're the same. The scale is the same scale.
When you look at the history of some of the tornadoes that we have seen in Michigan alone, some of the biggest tornadoes we've ever seen were back in the 50s, and the Beecher tornado was still one of the biggest tornadoes in the United States, let alone it's the biggest in Michigan. But that EF5 demolished Flint. But they had an outbreak that day. I think there was 2 EF5s over on the west side too.
That's insane.
The biggest one we've had here in northern Michigan, I did a story on, and it was up in Lake Ann. It was an EF4. And that does it for this episode of Beyond the Forecast. Thank you so much for hanging out with us here this late afternoon. We do appreciate it. For Meteorologist John Gross and Meteorologist Haley Fischetti, I'm Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens. Thank you. And we will see you right back here tomorrow for another episode of Beyond the Forecast. Be good, stay safe, take care. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.